Welcome back to the Brilliant Fertility Podcast. I'm really excited about today's conversation. And while it is a one-sided conversation, it is a really important conversation to be having about how your unconscious and your autonomic nervous system is linked to this very wise body that you have and to its wisdom, what it wants to communicate to you. So if you've experienced really frustrating symptoms, including infertility, if you've been constantly in pain or tired and you are wondering, like, how do I cultivate trust with this body? How do I get to a point where I feel like I'm on the same team as this body? Then this episode is for you. The truth is, your body is so wise. And I can really appreciate if you are sitting there being like, yeah, but like, it's so annoying and I'm so pissed off and I'm so frustrated. I've been there. And listen, I've started to observe some of these patterns. You guys all know how obsessed with the unconscious mind I am and with these patterns that we have in life. I have observed some of these patterns for myself of when I experience symptoms. And there is deep wisdom in that. I've learned over the years how to more efficiently connect with that wisdom. But one of the patterns for me in particular, this does not mean this is your pattern. And I certainly don't want to project this on anyone else. But as a person who works in the healing space, who facilitates transformation and healing, I've noticed that so much of what I have gone through, I then say to myself afterwards, like, oh, well, I'm so glad I went through that so that I could relate to my patients better. I can empathize with them better. And so I'm just putting this out into the universe that I have been through enough diagnoses and experiences health-wise. I'm good on relating, but I am just continuously setting that intention to connect with my body. And most recently, I had an interesting experience. You might even be able to still hear a little bit of it in my voice. In the last, many episodes, you've probably noticed it, that I had developed this cough over the last, 6 weeks or so that just would not let up. And it manifested so much differently than I've ever had like an upper respiratory thing manifest before. And that I lost my voice for almost 10 days. I would then start to, get my voice back. But if I talked too much, then my throat would start to tickle and I'd get that stupid tickle cough that is just so infuriating that like it didn't matter like what you drank. It was just like, oh, like tears like streaming down my face. And it just pissed me off so much. And then, I'd have to laugh because I know that my body is trying to communicate something to me. And yes, sure, it could also be a virus. It's probably RSV, which is going around our community. Even though, like, I do my best with all the things to stay protected and washing hands and masking in really crowded spaces and doing a lot of our social stuff outside because we can, and it's beautiful here. Like, I very much believe in that. And I believe that sometimes we are given an experience to learn from. And usually I don't share things like this until I'm like out of it and I've gathered all my learnings. And to be honest, like I'm still a little bit in the middle of that. I'm a little bit still in the healing recovery of it and integrating what this meant, having to cancel like dozens of my one-to-one appointments, which I just loathe doing. And then trying to figure out, well, where do I put these on a schedule that's already full? So I think part of the learning here for me is the continuing to slow down, the continuing to take things off my plate. And there's a lot of resistance for me around that. But larger than me, because I'm here for you, is to teach you how to listen to your own body's wisdom and invite you to the practices that I have found really helpful for myself, that I have taught to, our clients in the Brilliant Fertility Program, and to learn your own tools, because there are dozens of ways to go about this. There's no one right way. There's not like, oh, there's only this path that you can take to learn about this. There's truly so many ways, and a lot of it will be based on you, your design, what unwinds your nervous system, what allows you to slow down in such a way that you can hear those whispers from the body. If you remember in our last episode with Dr. Nicole Kane, she said something that's like, gosh, I wonder if we both heard this in medical school, because I've said it to myself so many times. Like, when you really slow down to listen to your body, you can hear the whispers. You don't have to wait until the body is screaming at you. So even though our conversation with Dr. Kane was largely around anxiety, this applies to so many other things happening in the body, really to all the things that are happening in the body. And because we operate largely on an unconscious level, if you remember back to our episodes about the unconscious mind, subconscious blocks, we are only operating from about 5 to 10% consciously, intentionally. Some people even less. And that means there's, 90 to 95% of what is happening in our body, what's happening in our thoughts and beliefs are unconscious. And because the unconscious mind and the autonomic nervous system are so intrinsically connected, just knowing that gives us a lot more opportunity to discover that body's communication. So what do I mean by that? That the unconscious mind and the autonomic nervous system are intrinsically connected. So we're going back to like high school biology here. The autonomic nervous system is the part of the nervous system that controls the unconscious processes in the body. So everything that is happening in the body without you ever having to think about it or send the directions to. So for example, your heart beating, breathing, digesting your food. We don't have to think about those things. They're just happening. It's happening even while we sleep. Versus the things that we are conscious of, like chewing our food, the first part of swallowing our food. Those are the things that we are consciously aware of. So the autonomic nervous system is directing all of these unconscious processes in the body. And our body has all this wisdom that we're not consciously interpreting, right? So what is another example of this? In very, very early pregnancy, for example, someone might not actually realize that they're pregnant yet, right? Those pregnancy tests only start to show a positive result when someone is like a minimum of, usually I don't tell people to test like earlier than about 10 days post ovulation. But the body already knows as soon as implantation starts happening. We have that feedback from the embryo. It's putting out the hormone HCG. It's telling the ovary, keep making that progesterone. We have this positive feedback loop happening, and that's unconscious. And we can't even detect it on a blood test until we're far enough into that process that the HCG makes it into the bloodstream. But the body knows that that's happening, right? So that's an example. We can't consciously interpret that. We will sure as hell try to. We will look for all the symptoms, right? And that's a conversation for a different day of how many of us have I heard people talk about this where they will say something like, I'm just so in tune with my body, but what they're really meaning is I am so aware of every sensation in my body, every little twinge, every little gas bubble, every little thing is something that I'm like, what was that? So that's probably a different conversation around the hyper awareness of all the body sensations versus that intuitive wisdom about what the body is telling us. So with if I were to rattle off all the various diagnoses that I had from the time I was 15 all the way to 27, I had chronic cystic acne, chronic sinusitis, chronic allergies. I'd actually been diagnosed with reactive airway disease. I was told I had asthma when I was younger, interstitial cystitis, anxiety, insomnia. After I came off birth control and didn't get a period for months on end at a time, PCOS, hypothyroid, Hashimoto's. Gosh, we've got like 10 things right there, right? What I now know to be true for myself is that because I have such a challenging time slowing down and listening, it's like the body was just throwing more signals out. It was like, okay, you didn't hear me that time, so I'm just going to make this bigger and louder and more painful until you hear it differently and you finally listen. And so noticing what that example could be for you, like, do you have a moment when you realize, oh, the body might have been whispering way back then? Might have been whispering when I was having those painful periods at 15. It might have been whispering when I had that acne. It might have been whispering when I started getting those migraines. And a lot of those might feel like your body was screaming, but just as an example, is like there will be signals. And in that Western medical model, a lot of those signals are just looked at as pathology. And, oh, you have acne? Well, let's put you on antibiotics or birth control. Oh, you have migraines? Well, let's suppress the pain. And no one wants to be in pain. I can absolutely relate to wanting to shut the signal down, wanting it to just go away. Because if you've ever been in pain, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, or even just that pain of looking in the mirror and seeing a version of yourself that is painful to look at. I've been there and I can relate to wanting to shut that down. And in doing so, we're also shutting down that body's wisdom. We're shutting down what it was trying to tell us. And I want to be really compassionate to, the fact that because we are so desperate to feel better, to look better, to get our periods back, to get pregnant, that oftentimes we will make the decision that feels the easiest. Even if we don't have a way of knowing if that's going to work or if that's really getting to the root. So if this is resonating with you, or maybe it's even triggering you to like, oh gosh, do I really have to stop taking the medication that has been working for so long? I'm not here to tell you to stop anything right now. I think you should definitely consult with your providers. But sometimes those medications can really mask what the body is trying to say. And I had someone recently ask me about my experience with birth control because they had, listened to a podcast episode or read something on my website about my experience with stopping birth control and not getting my period. And they made the assumption that, well, the birth control was the problem. I personally don't believe that for myself. I believe that the birth control was masking the problem. The birth control allowed me to have regular periods. It suppressed the hormones in such a way that the acne couldn't manifest. And so that when I came off the pill and I had never truly dealt with what my body was asking for in the first place, all those symptoms reared their ugly heads, right? So I don't actually think that for me personally, the birth control was the problem. It may have perpetuated a problem, but I don't believe it started the problem. I think the whispers were there long, long, long before I started the birth control, and they just were trying to find their way out. So how I approach this for myself and how I've taught a lot of my patients, because I know that the slowing down is challenging. We live in this culture with, a lot of hustle, a lot of our worth tied up in productivity and, how much did you get done today? And just the idea of slowing down, I can see it on some people's faces when I suggest doing nothing, that it's like, do nothing. And so maybe this starts with 2 minutes a day of tuning in. Maybe this starts with, as you acknowledge that you are awake in the morning, before you even open your eyes, before you get out of bed, you just place a hand on your heart and notice your breath. I like to take a couple of longer breaths, not necessarily like forced deep breathing, but just maybe some longer breaths. And I'm just intuitively starting to do this now as I place a hand on my heart, and my body's kind of used to me doing this more often, especially as I've been healing from this cough. And just taking a moment to just notice my body, not bring that hypervigilance to all the sensations, but just noticing without judgment what's happening in the body. And then I spend some time in gratitude, like the real genuine gratitude of like, it is so fucking amazing that like I am breathing right now without having to think about it, especially having recovered from this, 6 weeks of coughing, that these amazing lungs were trying to communicate something to me, that they're breathing and they're bringing oxygen in it and they're releasing carbon dioxide without me ever sending those instructions. And sure, there might be some really frustrating things going on in the body too. You might have just started your period and it's painful and you're so pissed that it started again when you've been waiting for so long to get pregnant. But notice what is going well right now in the body, and 30 seconds on that. And I promise you, there is something, even if your mind has been so fixated on whatever you have had going on that is unpleasant or not your desired state. I promise you, there is something, and you may have to spend a little time and practice to find it and feel that gratitude. And once you've made that connection and remembering that the breath is that bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, you can then start to say, okay, body. And like, I literally talk out loud to my body. I'm no longer worried about looking like a crazy person. I just say, okay, body, I know we've been moving pretty fast lately, and you've been giving me some signals that I haven't really wanted to listen to. I've been really uncomfortable with those messages. I haven't quite known what to do with them. But I'm here now. I want to thank you for everything that you're doing well. And if there's anything we need to know, is there anything I need to know about how to nourish you better, about how to get on the same team again, I am ready to listen. And then I just wait. Sometimes I will actually hear a version of my own voice tell me something. It's often slow down. Maybe I'll see an image, often a picture of nature. And if you've never done this practice before, it's possible that nothing comes into your mind right away in the way you expect it. And instead of judging yourself for that, or making up some reasons why you suck at this, or, whatever it is that your brain, your conscious mind wants to say, just remembering that this is a practice. And if your entire life you have been told to be and act a certain way, and you've never been taught to listen to your body in the way that you want to, know that it's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take a little bit of practice. This is building a muscle, or actually, it's more like building a bridge. It's building this bridge of communication. And if you imagine that that bridge requires a blueprint and materials and people really putting their daily intention on building this bridge, maybe that is what needs to happen for you. And that's okay. I did not come to this overnight. And even though I've been doing this for 12 years now, I still find myself in places of resistance and needing to remind myself to use my own tools, and that's okay. Bringing some self-compassion into this of like, I'm trying this new thing. I'm doing this new thing. I am learning. If you've ever heard me talk about affirmations before, you know that just adding on the statement, I am learning at the beginning of everything. I'm learning to trust my body. I'm learning to listen to the wisdom within my body. I'm learning to believe that my body is truly wise and that my unconscious wants the best for me. And remembering that sometimes, because the brain is hardwired for survival, that what you want for you and what the brain has started to wire itself for, it might feel different, right? So that's why sometimes we really have to be intentional about slowing down, deciding what we do want, and reclaiming this relationship with your body. Oh, wow, just doing that quick practice with you, like, I don't know about you, but I feel like so zen at this moment. And I hope that you are able to find a little bit of space for that every day, to listen to that wisdom, to notice just that divine intuition that begins to come through that you remember about yourself. Because this isn't so much about creating something brand new that you've never known before. It's really more about coming back to yourself and remembering what you've always known to be true about yourself in that reconnection to your body. All right. I am so curious to know how these tools and these processes are supporting you. And I love hearing from our listeners. So I love when you guys send me messages after you've listened to an episode about what you're noticing, what questions you have. So keep that up. I love it. And if you would love to take a moment to pause, leave us a review, give us a rating, that helps this podcast get in front of more listeners. And gosh, can you imagine what the world could look like if everyone took that 2 minutes to slow down every day and ask, like, what is this wise body wanting me to know, before they go out there and take all their pain into the world and project it on everyone else? Like, shit, I think we'd be in a much kinder place. So let's spread the word on this one. And I hope that you have carried this sense of Zen with you and continue to build upon everything that we have taught in this podcast. Right. I'm sending you so much love and so much juicy reconnection with your body's wisdom over the coming weeks. Signing off for real now. Love you guys so much.